Welcome to Breaking Wire. Please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon for more updates. September 13th, 2025. A date that will be remembered as a turning point in North American history. On this day, the world woke up to a new reality. One where the United States, a nation long seen as a land of abundance, faced a crisis it could not solve alone. The headlines are dire. America is running out of water. News outlets flash urgent updates, social media is flooded with desperate pleas, and the sense of panic is palpable from coast to coast. Years of relentless climate change have scorched U.S. farmlands, turning once fertile fields into barren dust bowls. Reservoirs that once brimmed with life now lie empty, their cracked beds exposed to the unforgiving sun. The mighty Colorado River, once a symbol of American prosperity, is now reduced to a mere trickle. The Ogallala Aquifer, which sustained generations of farmers, is nearly depleted, its water table dropping lower each year. This isn't a distant threat, it's a crisis unfolding in real time. Emergency warnings blare from televisions and phones, while families line up for hours at water distribution centers, hoping for just a few gallons to get them through the week. America, a superpower built on innovation and might, now finds itself desperate for the most basic resource of all: water. The nation's pride is shaken, its people anxious and uncertain. With reservoirs running dry and rivers shrinking, the U.S. now looks north with growing urgency. Canada's vast lakes, powerful rivers, and snow-capped mountains glisten like a promise of salvation just beyond reach. In California's Central Valley, the breadbasket of America, water rationing has become the new normal. Farmers are forced to abandon crops, and entire communities face the threat of collapse. Cities like Phoenix and Las Vegas, once symbols of American ambition, are now on the brink of running dry. Lawns have turned brown, fountains are shut off, and the desert heat feels more oppressive than ever. President Trump, facing mounting pressure and public outrage, has turned this environmental disaster into a blunt demand: Canadian water for America at any cost. The message is clear: the U.S. will do whatever it takes to secure its future. What began as a campaign quip about a giant faucet from Canada has now become a formal, aggressive demand for millions of gallons. The rhetoric is no longer just political theater, it's a matter of national survival. For Canadians, this isn't just a resource issue, it's an existential threat to our identity and sovereignty. The thought of exporting our water, the lifeblood of our land, strikes a deep emotional chord. The U.S. sees our water as a commodity to be bought and sold. But for us, water is the heart of our nation, a source of life, culture, and pride, passed down through generations. The idea of selling or diverting our rivers to quench America's thirst is more than a policy debate. It's a challenge to what it means to be Canadian. Protests erupt across the country as citizens demand that our water remain in Canadian hands. This isn't a simple trade dispute, it's a high-stakes confrontation, with legal battles, diplomatic tensions, and the future of two nations hanging in the balance. For Canadians, it's a fight for our future, our land, and our soul. The rivers and lakes that define our landscape are not just resources, they are part of who we are. The world is watching as the crisis unfolds, wondering if two neighbors can find common ground, or if this desperate plea for water will spark a conflict that changes the course of history. What began as Trump's offhand faucet remarks has now erupted into a full-blown diplomatic crisis, sending shockwaves through both countries and the world at large. The international community watches in disbelief as tensions escalate at a pace no one could have predicted. Trump is no longer simply making requests. He's issuing ultimatums. He's demanding access to Canadian water, and to back up his demands, he's threatening a sweeping 25% tariff on all Canadian goods entering the United States. The stakes have never been higher for Canadian businesses and families. This isn't negotiation, it's economic blackmail on a scale rarely seen between allies. The threat of tariffs has sparked outrage, protests, and emergency meetings in both Ottawa and Washington. The rhetoric has taken a darker turn. Trump now openly floats the idea of annexing Canada, suggesting it should become the 51st state. His words, once dismissed as bluster, are now being taken seriously by officials on both sides of the border. These threats are more than just political theater. They're a direct insult to over a century of friendship, trust, and alliance between our two nations. Generations have built this partnership, and now, it's under threat. In a stunning move, the Trump administration has abruptly paused the Columbia River Treaty negotiations, signaling that every shared resource, water, energy, and more, has become a bargaining chip in this high-stakes standoff. This decision puts decades of cross-border cooperation at risk, threatening not only diplomatic ties, but also the health of entire ecosystems that depend on careful stewardship and mutual respect. As uncertainty grips both nations, the stock market tumbles. Investors and ordinary citizens alike are left wondering what the future holds as financial news grows increasingly grim. Trump may believe that Canada will simply fold under pressure, but he's gravely underestimated the resolve and unity of the Canadian people. Across the country, citizens rally together, determined to defend their sovereignty. This is not just another business deal to be negotiated or traded away. For Canadians, it's about protecting our home, our values, and our future, no matter the cost. Into this storm steps Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. A man known for his calm under pressure, Carney is no stranger to global crises. His reputation as a steady hand at the helm of the Bank of England and Bank of Canada precedes him, but now, the stakes are higher than ever. The eyes of a nation, and the world, are fixed on him as he takes the reins at a time of unprecedented tension. Sworn in just weeks ago, Carney faces an immediate test of leadership. The weight of history presses down as he steps into office, inheriting a crisis that threatens not just Canada's resources, but its very sovereignty. Every gesture, every word, is scrutinized by allies and adversaries alike. In a televised address watched by millions, he slams the door on bulk water exports. Canada's water is not for sale. His message is clear and uncompromising, echoing through living rooms from Vancouver to St. John's S. The world listens as Carney draws a line in the sand. He speaks of sovereignty, respect, and the duty to protect our natural heritage. Carney invokes the legacy of those who built the nation, reminding Canadians that stewardship of the land and water is a sacred trust passed down through generations. Carney makes it clear, Canada is not a vassal state. Our resources are our birthright, not a bargaining chip. He stands shoulder to shoulder with his cabinet, projecting unity and resolve in the face of external pressure. His words unite Canadians across political lines. In living rooms, cafes, and community halls, people set aside old divisions, rallying behind a common cause. For the first time in years, there is a sense of shared purpose. Patriotism surges, flags appear everywhere. From city skyscrapers to rural barns, the maple leaf becomes a symbol of defiance and hope. Children paint their faces red and white, and neighbors greet each other with newfound pride. The crisis has forged a stronger national identity than we've seen in decades. Across provinces and territories, Canadians rediscover what binds them together, finding strength in unity. The Trump administration expected capitulation, but found defiance and unity instead. In Washington, surprise gives way to concern, as the Canadian response upends expectations. Carney reframes the conflict as a moral and sovereign imperative. He tells the world that this is not just about water, but about the right of a nation to chart its own destiny. Any future talks must begin with respect and a withdrawal of annexation threats. Carney insists that dialogue is possible, but only if Canada's autonomy is honored. The world is watching. Will the U.S. choose diplomacy or confrontation? Headlines flash across the globe, and foreign leaders weigh in, urging restraint and negotiation. The next move is Washington's. As night falls over the continent, the fate of two nations hangs in the balance, and the world waits for an answer. The crisis revives NWAPA, the North American Water and Power Alliance, a colossal destructive plan from the 1950s. It would dam Canada's wildest rivers, flood millions of acres, and send water south through a web of canals and tunnels. The environmental cost would be catastrophic: destroyed ecosystems, flooded forests, and devastated Indigenous lands. Indigenous leaders and the Canadian government stand united in opposition. NWAPA remains what it always was: a dangerous fantasy. Trump's hardline stance isn't universally supported in the U.S., even among his own party. Republican lawmakers and diplomats openly reject annexation, voicing their concerns in public forums. They warn against a trade war with Canada, highlighting the risks to both economies. Even Trump's ambassador to Canada affirms our sovereignty, standing firm in diplomatic meetings. Behind the scenes, diplomats scramble to contain the fallout and prevent further escalation. This division weakens Trump's position on the world stage and signals to Canada that dialogue and negotiation are possible. Carney's firm stance appeals to rational actors seeking a peaceful way out of crisis. The war of words has become a trade war, hurting both nations. Trump's tariffs and Canada's retaliation disrupt supply chains, threaten jobs, and rattle markets. Canada supplies the U.S. with most of its imported oil, electricity, and key materials. American goods flow north, supporting millions of jobs. This economic self-harm is a dangerous gamble. Both countries' business communities warn of recession and lasting damage. Political pressure mounts in the U.S. as industries suffer. The livelihoods of millions now hang in the balance. We stand at a watershed moment for North America. Will we descend into conflict or find a path back to cooperation? The stakes, our economies, our alliance, and our future. Confrontation means mutual loss and isolation. Collaboration means shared solutions, conservation, innovation, and respect for our watersheds. This crisis has united Canadians and tested our resolve. Carney's response opens the door for diplomacy, but the next move is America's. The world waits. Will the U.S. be a partner or a predator?